There were more than 800 men, women, and children that were killed on Main Street in Hinsdale. It's a tragedy, but they had been so prosperous dealing with the European traders. They had become very rich, very well off, and they were very good, and the rest of the whole Confederation was not in that shape. So they eliminated them. The 5 villages within the Confederation were effectively moved or destroyed. In Hinsdale, the casualties, I was told by the shaman, was 800 men, women, and children, which lays down the framework for everything that we are dealing with, along with more than you can imagine. The ancient burial ground of that village lies within 250 feet of this house. It is an incredible place. It has and deserves all the respect that you could ever give it. I found it about 9 years ago. I have not been back to it since. I give it the respect that those individuals that are buried there deserve. As we are looking at this, we've got the potential of having some very interesting effects on the land, the people that live on the hill, and the whole community of Hinsdale. As it has been brought to my attention, there are several and more likely many places on Main Street, Hinsdale, that are affected by different forms of energy, different spirit. The house here is affected by that spirit, and it's affected by the energy in general. There are a lot of scientific reasons why manifestations happen around here. A lot of them deal with altitude, with water, with the fault lines that run through, the electromagnetic energy of the flux of the earth, all of those things. And Einstein talked about a lot of those things in his theory of motion. To bring us up to the more current time, the Dandy family, which moved into the house in 1970, thought it was exactly a perfect place. They moved from Buffalo. They found this house on this hill and fell in love with it. Shortly after moving in, few things started to happen within the house and to the members of the family. Those have been well documented over the years, and Father Alphonsus from St. Bonaventure and the medium Alex Tanis out of New York City joined teams together to try to rid the house of the energy that was afflicting the people of the family. These things attached to one specific member, and Laura was the one that seemed to be most affected by the energy. Everybody was affected, but she was more affected by it, and it seemed to home in on her aura, on her energy, and perhaps she supplied the source that the energy needed to be real, to be in our presence, to be in our realistic world that we have. So what we are going to do in this, Roger is going to really plan on doing the exorcism. We are going to fulfill Father Al's accomplishment that he wanted to really do, but because of the house and because of the energy at the time, he was so totally distracted that it was a total impossibility to perform the exorcism the way it should have been done. And I fortunately had the opportunity to work with him the last 2.5 years of his life. And I asked him point blank, after I had come up with all of the evidence that things were still going on here to this day, I said, Father, obviously the exorcism did not work. I cannot believe I really asked that man in question. He looked at me and he said, yes, Michael, it did not work. And I said, do you know why it didn't work? And he told me about the distractions. He told me about the lights flashing. He told me about things falling and breaking. Everybody was actually very, very agitated. A couple of people were whimpering. Alex was talking, and he said, The film crew had their microphone hanging out the kitchen window, actually listening to the house scream. This video was taken by some NYU students that came along with Mr. Tanis from New York City. The film has never surfaced. Dr. Tanis tried to find it, Father Al tried to find it, everybody over the years has tried to find that film. That film is like the holy grail of a lot of paranormal work, not just here in Hinsdale, but worldwide, the whole phenomenon. That film would give researchers so much knowledge and understanding of how the paranormal really works. If that film were ever to be found, it would be an incredible, incredible discovery to the people that know and are affected by paranormal activity. Some of the examples that occurred when the Dandy family was here. Clara, one day the family went into town, so she was in the living room and she was reading a book, and all of a sudden she heard slamming windows, and it was a beautiful day and the windows were all slamming shut. It was like they were falling down and closing. She got up and the curtains were blowing, but the windows sounded like they were actually crashing. So she said, "This is absolutely crazy." She had to leave the house, so she left the house with her dog and she went up the back hills just for a walk to get out of the house. She got to the top of one of the knolls, and all of a sudden she heard this music. No instruments, just voices singing. You couldn't understand what they were saying. It was just like a choir without an organ, just a cappella. And I'll be honest with you, I have heard that music one time. I have heard that music one time. And I have never heard it since. But I guess that's how the energy works here. It doesn't necessarily play tricks on you, it performs in front of you. One of the Dandy kids, Michael, matter of fact, behind me is Michael's bedroom. This is the room where he had a very traumatic thing happen. He was sleeping and he had a stack of games above his head on shelves attached to the wall. 3 games that were under the stack got pulled out and dropped on top of him. The rest of the stack remained on the shelf. He literally came unglued. Just, you can imagine, laying there and all of a sudden you have these things falling on top of you and you look up and they were on the bottom of the pile, but the pile's still there. So how did that happen? It's just amazing. One of the other situations of an individual that lived here after the Dandies. She was in the living room and she saw this smoky air in the kitchen and got up and came out. And there, she said, standing in the back door was a huge gray wolf, and it disappeared into the doorway to her right.
Ye
Old
UFO store.